compaction is the process of removing airspace between soil particles by tamping and/or vibrating. A surface that is compacted correctly provides a solid base for building foundations. Soil compaction is one of the most important jobs performed on a construction site. Unfortunately, it is often taken for granted. Soil that has not been disturbed is naturally compacted. Once soil has been excavated, to install a pipe or a utility box, for example, the backfilling must be done in a way to make it as close to undisturbed soil as possible. In many cases, soil compaction, if done properly, provides a better foundation than the original undisturbed soil. During backfilling, soil develops air pockets between the soil particles. Eventually, the soil will settle and compact naturally to some degree, but this will not be as stable as it was before it was excavated. If that area of soil is used for a structure, such as a road or a building, it will not provide a strong, solid foundation. This is one reason why previously excavated soil must often be compacted during backfilling, using specific equipment and methods designed for the type of soil you are compacting. The amount of compaction needed to provide a firm foundation depends on several factors: the type of soil, the moisture content of the soil, the lift or uncompacted material, and the type of compaction equipment used. Compaction equipment ranges from small walk-behind vibratory compactors to huge self-powered rollers and sheep's foot compactors. Each type of compaction equipment has its uses and applications. For example, soil with a high clay content compacts better with a ramming or pounding compactor than with a vibrating type. Sand or gravel compacts better with vibrating equipment. While working around or operating any type of soil compaction equipment, you should always wear the proper personal protective equipment. This includes a hard hat, steel-toed work boots, padded work gloves to lessen the effects of vibration, ANSI-approved safety glasses, and hearing protection, either earplugs or ear muffs. Soil compacting equipment is loud and can cause hearing damage, especially during prolonged or repeated use. The three most common types of compaction equipment you will routinely operate are vibratory plate compactors, ramming compactors, and walk-behind rollers. Vibratory plate compactors are self-propelled and most often consist of a 4-stroke engine mounted on a sled plate. Vibratory plate compactors can compact lifts of granular material 4 to 8 inches deep. They are well suited for compacting flat surfaces. Before operating the vibratory plate compactor, check the fuel and oil levels. If the engine needs fuel or oil, be sure not to overfill them. Never refuel any power tool while it is running or when the engine is still hot. To start the engine, turn the on-off switch to the on position. Close the choke and open the throttle halfway. Now, pull the starter cord. Once the engine has started, open the choke and allow the compactor to idle for a few minutes so it warms up. Once the compactor engine is warm, open the throttle completely. This will start the vibratory action of the compactor and will propel the sled over the soil. On some compactors, the handle can be flipped from one end to the other. This type of compactor will only run in one direction, regardless of the position of the handle. On reversible vibratory plate compactors, there is a small handle attached to a larger handle that controls the movement of the compactor. By changing the direction of the handle, you change the direction, either forward or backward, of the machine. To make turns while using all types of vibratory compactors, simply push on the large handle to steer in the direction you want to go. All compactors work best if the surface of the material you are compacting is fairly smooth. To stop the plate compactor, close the throttle until the compactor stops moving. Allow the compactor to idle for a few minutes to cool down. Turn the on-off switch to the off position. There are many different soil types. They are classified according to the size of the particles they contain. These particles can range in size from extremely small grain to rocks. Soil consisting of very small particles is called cohesive soil. It can be molded by hand and will hold its shape. Clay and peat are examples of cohesive soil. Soil with larger particles is called granular soil. Granular soil will not hold a shape when molded with hand pressure. Sand and gravel are examples of granular soils. The moisture content of the soil is another important factor that affects compaction. For good compaction, each particle must fit against another, and the air pockets between them must be filled. Moisture in the soil helps to create good compaction. Water makes it harder for the smaller particles to fall to the bottom of the layer, which would cause the material to segregate. Water also lubricates the particles, which allows them to move easily against each other. Also, watch for water standing on top of the fill material. This means the fill material cannot absorb any more water. Generally, you do not need to add so much water that it stands on the surface. Determining how much water to use comes with experience. A soil lift is a layer of material brought in to replace poor existing soil. Several factors affect the compaction quality of each lift, including the depth of the lift, the smoothness of the surface, and the size of the rocks in the fill material. If a lift is too deep, only the soil near the top of the lift will become compacted. This compacted soil will form a bridge over the uncompacted soil lying beneath it. Eventually, the soil underneath the lift will settle and cause movement in the layers above. To prevent this bridging action, be certain the lift of new or uncompacted material is not deeper than the depth the compaction equipment can penetrate. Always grade the new lifts as flat as possible before attempting to compact them. The last factor that affects compaction is the size of rocks in the fill material. Large rocks will support the compaction equipment and prevent compaction in their immediate vicinity. Ramming compactors work better than vibratory plate compactors on cohesive soils and in areas that are difficult to level. There are two types of ramming compactors, the jumping jack and the tamper. Most jumping jacks are two-stroke engines mounted on a foot that jumps up and down and rams the soil several times per minute. They are most often used in narrow areas for compacting pipe haunches and are commonly used in trench work. In any case, the jumping jack works best on relatively smooth surfaces. Operating this compactor on uneven terrain can make the jumping jack unstable and difficult to handle. To operate the jumping jack, first check the fuel level. If the jumping jack needs fuel, be sure the fuel-oil mix used is the right mix ratio. To start the jumping jack, open the throttle about halfway. Now, close the choke. If the jumping jack has a primer button, press it 3 times. Pull the starter cord until the engine fires. Many times the engine will fire, but then stall. If this is the case, open the choke and pull the starter cord again to restart the engine. Once the engine has started, allow it to idle for a couple of minutes to warm up. After the engine is warm, firmly grab the handle of the machine and then fully open the throttle. Once the throttle is fully opened, the jumping jack will begin to jump up and down, propelling it forward. Make sure you have a firm grip and good footing. The jumping jack moves forcefully and can be very unstable. When operating the jumping jack, be sure to keep your feet clear of the foot. The foot moves rapidly and with a great deal of force. It is capable of causing serious injury. To stop the jumping jack, first close the throttle until the jumping jack stops moving. Allow the engine to idle for a few minutes to cool down. Turn the on-off switch to the off position. Some tampers are pneumatic, meaning they are air-powered. Because they are narrow, pneumatic tampers are ideal for use in tight places. These tampers are sometimes referred to as pogo stick or lollipop tampers. Keeping both hands on the tamper, pull the trigger to start the machine. Brace yourself. Just like the jumping jack, the tamper will begin to jump up and down very quickly. To safely run the tamper, keep your arms extended and away from your body. This will reduce the chance that the tamper will contact any part of your body, especially your feet. To steer, use your lower hand to move the tamper in the direction that you want it to go. To stop the tamper, release the trigger. Using a hand tamper for compacting soil is also considered a form of ramming. This method is normally used for small projects, such as landscaping. A manual handheld tamper is used by picking up the tool and dropping it repeatedly. Rollers are often used for soil compaction. Walk-behind rollers can be either gasoline or diesel-powered. Both types move under their own power. Because of their weight, they can penetrate deeper and compact a thicker lift than other types of compactors. However, to compact effectively, they also require a fairly level surface and more maneuvering room than other types of compactors. As is the case with any power tool, you should make it a habit to first check fuel and oil levels before you start the machine. The next step is to start the engine by following the same steps used to start the vibratory plate compactor. To start a diesel engine, turn the on-off switch to the on position. Check that the compactor is in neutral. On some compactors, there is a lever that controls the direction of travel. You'll notice letters that include forward, neutral, and reverse. Set the throttle control lever to about the half-open position. Some diesel compactors have a switch or button that activates the cylinder heater to help with cold weather starts. After the compactor is started, let it idle for a couple of minutes to warm up. Once the engine is warmed up, set the throttle control lever to the fully open position.
Here we go.
Push the travel control lever in the direction you want the compactor to travel.
Another kind of remote control.
Some walk-behind double-drum sheep's foot rollers come with a remote control panel for controlling the machine. The operator uses the two joysticks on the remote control to direct the compactor. To turn the sheep's foot roller, the operator moves one of the joysticks. For instance, he pushes the right joystick forward if he wants the roller to turn left. When the job is finished and you are done using a walk-behind compactor, set the transmission to the neutral position. Next, throttle down the machine and allow it to cool for a few minutes. Once cooled, you can turn off the machine. Return the remote control panel into its compartment. Soil compaction is an important part of any construction job that disturbs the earth. Almost all construction work involves some soil compaction. Remember, know the soil you are working with. Properly moisten the soil to be compacted. Use the right compaction equipment for the job. Backfill only in recommended lifts. Exercise extreme caution when compacting around pipe and other utilities. As a construction laborer, it is likely that you will use a soil compactor at some point in your career. You should be familiar with the operation and maintenance procedures for each piece of soil compaction equipment you use.